You've been scrolling through a dozen greenhouse options, wondering if you'll finally get something that actually works in the real world, not just a glossy spec sheet. You want a structure that's reliable enough to survive a New England winter, easy enough that you won't spend your weekends untangling bolts, and worth the money because you can actually grow food or flowers all year. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The big question most of us face is, will this greenhouse be the kind of set-it-and-forget-it addition to the garden, or will it end up as a pricey storage shed for dead plants? Let's talk about the Palram Canopia Grand Gardener, an 8x16-foot resin greenhouse that's marketed as a barn-style shelter for serious hobbyists. I dug into the engineering claims Palram makes, skimmed through the handful of buyer ratings, and thought about how a typical backyard setup would actually use this thing. Below is the lowdown on whether it lives up to the hype, and who should bother with it. First off, the most obvious concern is durability. Palram says the frame is virtually unbreakable, and that the panels are made from high-impact polycarbonate with 100% UV protection. In practice, that means you can expect the panels to stay clear for years without yellowing, and they won't crack if a stray branch or a strong gust hits them. For anyone who's seen a cheap acrylic greenhouse turn brittle after a single harsh winter, that's a big relief. The polycarbonate also does a decent job of insulating warmer nights in early spring, cooler days in midsummer, so you won't need a separate heater for the first few weeks of the season. Installation is the next hurdle most people worry about. The Canopia comes with step-by-step instructions that are written for a homeowner with basic tools: drill, screwdriver, and a helper. The kit includes pre-drilled holes and all the necessary hardware, so you're basically assembling a large wooden playhouse. The biggest hidden trade-off here is the sheer size. An 816 frame is a sizable footprint, and you need a flat, level area with at least a few feet of clearance on each side for the doors and for you to move around. If you have a small backyard or a lot of existing landscaping, you'll have to rearrange or cut back on other features to make room. On the plus side, once the base is set, the panels snap in and the whole thing feels solid without any wobble. Now, what does daily use actually look like? Imagine you're a mid-season tomato grower who wants to protect the vines from an unexpected frost. You roll the side doors open, pull a portable heater into the corner, and the polycarbonate panels keep the heat from escaping too quickly. Because the panels are UV-filtered, the plants get enough light without the glass turning into a greenhouse oven on a hot day. The barn-style roof also gives you a higher ceiling than many low-profile models, which means you can fit taller plants like cucumber trellises or dwarf fruit trees without hitting the roof. The interior space is roomy enough to place a potting bench, a small shelving unit, and still have room to walk around. That's the kind of practical layout that hobbyists actually need, not just a cramped box. Maintenance is often where cheaper greenhouses fall short. The Canopia's polycarbonate is marketed as maintenance-free. In real life, that translates to panels that you can hose off with a garden sprayer and they'll stay clear. There's no need for periodic repainting or sealant work that you see with wooden frames. However, the design does rely on passive ventilation. There are a few vent windows that you open manually. If you live in a very humid climate, you'll need to remember to crack those vents a few times a day to prevent condensation. The vents are functional, but not automated, so it's a small chore you have to incorporate into your routine. Let's break down who actually benefits from this greenhouse. If you're a serious home gardener who already has a decent amount of space, wants to extend the growing season for vegetables, herbs, or even some small fruit trees, and you don't want to spend hours each weekend fiddling with broken panels, the Canopia is a solid match. Its size accommodates a decent amount of soil beds, and the UV-protected panels let you grow seedlings earlier in the spring without worrying about light loss. The durability also makes it a good investment if you're planning on using it for several years. The higher price point, compared to hobby store kits, starts to pay off when you factor in the reduced need for replacement parts. On the flip side, there are clear reasons to walk away. First, the cost. This isn't a budget greenhouse. It sits in the mid to high price range for residential units. If you're just starting out and only want to grow a few lettuce heads, a smaller 48 or a pop-up model would likely satisfy you for a fraction of the price. Second, the footprint. You need at least a 1,018-foot clear area to